I've got to warn you, there's some tough stuff ahead. I won't be pulling any punches. And it may be depressing, and yes, there's going to be math. What's more depressing to an artist than math? But this is called the unvarnished artist for a reason. And but it's not going to be all a bummer though. I'm going to give two examples of artists who appear to be living the dream of being full time. Hi, my name is Jeff. I've been painting in oils and watercolors for 35 years, and welcome to my studio. I don't know when this video is going to get out because my son is getting married this weekend and I'm going to be pretty busy, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to edit it for quite a bit, but whatever. Let's go. Let's get right into it. So this is the dream of painting all day and living off the income from your paintings and being your own boss, not answering to anybody, and working for yourself. And a typical day may start where you get up around 8 a.m. Then you have coffee, you browse social media, you answer some emails, then you're off to the gym or to do yoga. Then you come home and you eat, and you start working in the studio and you paint until you get tired or your eyes get tired after a few hours. And so then you go and you make dinner, and then you Netflix and chill for the rest of the evening. And then you go back to bed. Once a month or maybe once a quarter, you turn your paintings that you've painted, into the gallery. The gallery does all the selling and the promotion. They cut your checks and they take out your taxes. And you're living the dream. There are many, many articles and videos about becoming a full-time artist. It's easier than you think. But I did a quick survey of full-time artists, and there's so much bullshit. They're either trying to sell you coaching programs or it's just hoodoo visualizations. It's not that easy, sadly, and I'll explain why it's so difficult. But you know what? It's not all doom and gloom, because I'll give you some examples, like I said, of some artists who have found success. And a caveat, I'm not talking about illustrators or about concept artists, about just fine art painters. I guess this kind of could go with sculptors. And that's because I know nothing about the world of illustration or of concept art. Now, in my experience, there are three categories of artists, generally. The first one, he or she, they are out of art school. They burst onto the scene. The professors were wowed. They're recruited by major galleries, like superstar athletes, before they're even graduated. Museums are requesting their latest works for shows. And as their career progresses, maitre d's and all the finest New York restaurants know who they are. Magazines want them for photo shoots. I mean, they're pretty much the demigods of artists or painters. Number two are usually supported by a spouse or partner, even if they don't always say they are. They paint as much as possible, and they concentrate on just painting and getting better and selling those paintings. But their finances, they always have the safety net that their finances are covered by somebody else's income. Any income that they make from their painting is plowed back into painting or into their business or to supplement the household income as they try to become full-time artists. And number three is probably one of the broadest categories. This category includes stay-at-home parents, hobbyists, Sunday painters, retirees, and all income from painting is either in support of their painting or an additional income for the household. Now, number one is not watching videos on how to become a full-time artist because they're already living the dream. And number two may be happy with where they are or looking to leverage it being into full-time at a future date. And number three, it would be the same, or they're happy supporting their painting with the occasional sale to be able to buy paint or brushes. Now, fair warning, this is the math ahead. I have experience with business numbers because in my full-time job, I run a division, and I had to learn how to read a P&L, had to work out labor expenses and profit margins and all that good stuff. I had to learn what makes a business go. So, all right, let's just get into it. Let's start with $100,000 in sales for a year. It sounds like a lot. It sounds wonderful. But let's break it down a little bit. $100,000 in sales is 10 pieces at 10K. It's 20 pieces at 5K, and it's 40 pieces at $2,500, and 100 pieces at $1,000. Those are the numbers that you have to sell in order to get $100,000 in sales. So 40 pieces, 40 paintings, is a little over 3 paintings a month to get to $100,000, and each one has to be priced at $2,500. This means that a gallery or galleries have to be actively selling over 3 of your paintings a month, or you need to be selling your work while keeping up an active painting practice. You're painting 40 paintings in a year that can be priced at $2,500. Remember, there's 52 weeks in a year. So let's try a different example using $50,000 in sales. 5 pieces at 10K, 20 pieces at $2,500, or 40 pieces at $1,250. Selling 20 pieces at the same price is 1.7 pieces a month that have to be sold to make $50,000. Creating 20 pieces in a year seems a bit more feasible, but it's still a lot. So let's talk about galleries. The gallery or the galleries that you're in, they have to sell $100,000 total in a year, $100,000 worth of your paintings, and congratulations, they did it. You've hit 6 figures in sales. But hold up, galleries get half of your sales, sometimes more, but we'll go with 50%. Because unless you're a rock star, one of those rock star artists, they don't pay you to be in their gallery. You put them basically on spec, and you only get paid if they sell it, and then they take half of it. So out of that $100,000 in sales, you made $50,000 that you can take, that they give you. Can you live on $50,000? Sure, lots of people do. But let's see how that breaks down, okay? So taxes come out of that money, out of that $50,000, and if you're single with no dependents, then it's about $15,000, unless you live in a state with no income tax. That leaves you $35,000 left over to spend, and that's for you to live your life. So out of the $100,000 in sales, you've actually made $35,000 that you can use to live. You have to live off that for a year. And can you? Yeah, people do all the time. But we're going to break that down even more to see how it pans out. So here's my $35,000 that I got out of my $100,000 in sales. And out of that money has to come something called fixed expenses. That's something that you have to pay. That's stuff like your mortgage, your rent, your property taxes, your school taxes, your heat and your electric, car payments and insurance, subscriptions, healthcare, your water bill, your sewer bill. All that is a fixed expense, and it's got to come out of that $35,000. Anything that recurs every month and is a relatively stable amount. Now, on the other side are variable expenses or discretionary expenses, and they're things like food, clothes, vehicle maintenance, paint and painting supplies, or all those boxes that you ordered off of Amazon. And out of that $35,000 that you made, $20,000 is used towards fixed expenses, because that's what heat and rent and mortgages and property taxes and school taxes and all that stuff adds up to about $20,000. So that leaves you with $15,000 out of $100,000 in sales. Okay, this is what businesses have to deal with all the time. Out of that, the 35, what did I say was left? Right, $15,000. Out of that $15,000, that's $1,250 a month And out of that, you got to pay for clothes, your paint, your supports, and two of your biggest costs are going to be gas and food if you have a car. $1,250 a month to live it up on, and you sold $100,000 worth of art in a year. To put that into perspective, I live alone, and my grocery bill, just groceries, is about $650 a month on average, or about half of that $1,250. So you've got 600 and change for everything else? That sucks. But as my boss always says, the numbers don't lie. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Or maybe you're thinking, I'll start a website, cut out the middleman, and sell direct so I get the whole $100,000. Not so fast, cowboy or cowgirl. If you do that, now you're the proud owner of a small business. And that means you wear all of the hats. You're president and CEO, HR, R&D, marketing, sales, shipping, finance, operations, maintenance, and you have to produce the product. And that's a lot of hats and a lot of responsibility. And most importantly, it's a lot of time. Now, I remember hearing from one artist that did this, and he worked 7 days a week for himself, and he painted maybe 3 days out of those 7. And they were 8 to 12-hour days. The other 4 days, he was trying to find buyers, he was shipping, he was updating the website, he was doing promotion, he was researching shows, he was doing all of the 1,001 things that always seem to have to be done with a small business and a workforce of 1. With gallery representation, you're paying them for their contacts, for their email lists. You're paying for their salesmanship, their shipping, and their branding, and their marketing. That's why they take half of whatever a painting sells for. Maybe someday I'll do an analysis of gallery representation and website sales. Maybe someday, if I get more than 5 subscribers. Do I have 5? I don't even think I have 5. But really, there's a reason for the meme of a starving artist. And when somebody on YouTube says they sold $100,000 in art last year and you can too, they're being more than just a bit disingenuous about it. So now let's get to the examples of artists who I told you I was going to mention, who seem to have cracked the code. And the first one I found, so like a lot of people, I browse Instagram and don't tell my boss. And I enjoy looking at contemporary painters, seeing what they're trying, hoping to get some ideas or inspiration or just be wowed by them. And a while ago, I came across a painter. His name is Jeremy Miranda, and he lives and works in Maine. Yeah, a place that coincidentally, for 6 months of the year is just awash in money. I don't know him, never met him, and the conclusions that I'm drawing are based on what I get from his Instagram. But it appears he's doing all right. I mean, every morning he goes out to the shed in his backyard with a cup of coffee to paint, and he has small 11 by 14s for sale at $700 a pop, and he seems to paint 2 a week. And they almost immediately sell. There's always red dots on them. And he does plein air painting too. And he has gallery representation for shows of bigger work. He does some big ones, and then he puts them in shows in a gallery. I don't know how many galleries he's in. I don't know also if he has a working spouse, but it really looks to me like he's living the dream. Selling 2 paintings a week at $700 a piece, that's $1,400 a week. That's not too shabby. So the second painter that I want to talk about, her name is Lisa Lebofsky, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Again, an Instagram artist. So I'm a sucker for good paintings of water, the ocean, and waves. And I noticed this artist was very good at it. And when she was offering small paintings for sale at $100, I jumped at the chance and I bought one. But I hadn't looked at the sizing. From the images, I thought they were like 4x6s or 3x5s, but it's actually much smaller. But it was a really super nice painting, really well done. And I like the stuff that she's doing. Then a few months after buying the painting, my son talked me into watching the Apple TV show Severance. And believe me, I'm going to connect these two, okay? Whenever I watch a show, and I know I'm kind of weird, but I notice the art on the walls of the show, what they picked. And all of the art in Severance was bad. I mean, it was terrible. It was, oh, and that's a choice that they made. And it was except for one painting of an iceberg that was very, very good. And it was obviously by design. The designers did that because everything in Severance is very designed. The painting was hung in a prominent place and it had a lot of screen time. So I'm on Instagram and I see that Lisa painted the iceberg. It was her painting hanging behind the desk, and it was probably about this big. And since then, I haven't seen her selling paintings on Instagram for $100, but I have seen her on vacation in Thailand and going to openings in New York City. And she's also doing workshops in the Catskills. So speaking of workshops, let's talk about side hustles. And there's a reason most artists have side hustles. This could be running a workshop or teaching painting nights at the local community center, but they need the extra income to pay their bills or to buy paint. I mean, it's hard being a full-time artist. Not impossible, but it's hard. I was at an opening a few Fridays ago, and an artist and I were talking, and I've known her for many, many years. And out of the blue, she thanked me for giving her a job when she needed one. And she was only there a few months, but it was a time in her life when she needed a steady income. Paintings were selling for her, and she had just left a gallery. So she needed a steady paycheck, which I understand, to count on. And soon enough, her sales picked up, and she left our company. We all do whatever we can to keep painting. So speaking of Instagram, I came across this post by @IofShe. I don't know if she wrote it or found it somewhere, but it goes like this. You work 8 hours to live 4, and you work 50 years to live 15. You wait all year for 2 weeks of vacation, and you save memories for someday that may never come. You earn money just to spend 90% on a means to survive, and you're not even present when you finally have a break. You skip seeing friends and family because work comes first. You buy things to impress people you don't know, and count down to escapes instead of creating a life. Painting is hard, but it's incredibly rewarding. And I made this video so that if you're thinking about making painting a business, at least you have some hard facts. And a big shout out to my son and his fiancée, who are probably married when this video gets published. Congratulations. And once again, if you support the arts, then buy originals.